BIS 1232 here with my CZ75 B SA single action only. Gonna go ahead and disassemble this. Hopefully this helps you out if you're gonna go ahead and modify this gun. Let's go ahead and safety check it. So, nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magazine. Put the magazine away. Release your slide. Line up your takedown lines. Pop your magazine or your slide release. Push your slide forward. Remove your recoil guide rod and spring. Remove your barrel. That's your top end. Remove the grips because we are going to remove the main or hammer spring, whatever you call it, and that'll make it easier to take out your sear cage assembly. Put the grips aside. What are you going to need for this? You're going to need a Phillips head, obviously. You can probably get away with just a small flat head. 3 30-second punch and a hammer. And then what I actually got was just this really small flathead screwdriver. Makes it a little bit easier for me, but grab something to pad your station here, and probably something to brace your gun. But since you have the hammer back, engage your safety. That'll lift up your first obstacle here. This is your sear spring. So what you're going to want to do is get a flathead or maybe pliers or whatever you have and pull that up and over to get on the lip of this. So let me go ahead and do that for you. So you go ahead and lift the spring up and over and let it rest right there on the ledge. And all you have to do now, pretty easy hopefully, is, well, pull the trigger. You want to get rid of your main spring, so use a table or whatever you got, your workstation, and press down on this plug. That'll relieve the pressure on this pin. Just slide that out. Should be really easy to slide out. That'll come out the other end. And while you have the pressure on it, you want to go ahead and push your magazine brake in. And then release the pressure on your plug, and your hammer spring will pop up or slide up. So at this point you can replace this hammer spring. I'm trying to remember the spec on this hammer spring. That's really freaking heavy, whatever it is. But recommend a 13-pound hammer spring. You can get that at Cajun Gun Works or czcustom.com. Let's see. Sorry about that. Well, you're going to have your safety engaged. Mine fell down by accident, but hopefully that sear spring should still be on that ledge, and it should be really easy to pull that right hand side safety out. Once you do that, you should be able to just pull your left hand side of the safety out. And with that, you should be able to pull out with ease your sear cage assembly, and that will relieve any pressure there. So you have no pressure on the hammer and no pressure there. See, the difference with this and the SP01 decocker is that this actually, the retaining pin here doesn't extend the full size of the frame. like the SP01 decocker. So you don't need a slave pin to hold this sear cage assembly together. So you can go ahead and pull it out. You don't need a slave pin for this, since it only extends to the end of the sear cage assembly itself. So that's pretty nice. So that makes changing out your hammer very easy, and polishing your internals way easier on a gun like this than versus your decocker models. So if you've read or heard, it's a lot easier to work on safety manual CZ75s versus your decockers. But either way, let's see, at this point, what many people do is that they're gonna punch out their trigger and replace their trigger. Even though this is a nice metal trigger, something I'd like to keep, most people, and I would recommend as well, swapping this out for a CZ Custom or Occasion Gun Works flat trigger, because it's going to make the trigger pull and reset a lot nicer, and you're again going to retain your over travel pre-travel screws on the new trigger. But again, this is just the disassembly. So at this point, let's see, what you can do is push up on the retaining pin, which is actually going to be held in place by this spring and your safety detent. So you want to just give that a light little push. You can see it's going to come out. Just be careful it doesn't spring out on you and you lose it. Put that aside, and then that way you can fully push that pin out. The hammer retaining pin is actually only able to be removed if you push right to left, and then that will bring out your single action only hammer. One thing to note, if you do replace this hammer, which again you can get from Occasion Gun Works or CZ Custom, this pin is staked and is holy hell to get out. So you're going to need a really strong punch or hammer, heavy hammer, to knock that out, and something very strong to brace it with if you don't have what is it called, a gun vise to pop that pin out. But very difficult to remove that pin. Easy to replace it, not so easy to take it out. So again, at this point, you can replace your hammer with a single action only hammer. Pretty cool look at this piece, because you don't have the secondary indent. It's just the sear release, which is right here, and the secondary indent that I'm referring to is where on a normal 75B you get to the half cock position, but on this model you don't have that, which is interesting because on another single action CZ that I have, it does have it, but this model particularly does not have that. Neither here or there, just something to note on this hammer itself. But let's see, you have one pin just holding that in. I'm actually not going to remove that, but pretty sure I've shown how to do that on another video. But you just hit out this trigger pin, and that is most likely staked as well. Yeah, most likely. Can't get a good shot of it, but I haven't actually attempted to take this pin out. Let's see if I can get that on camera. No, it's not staked actually, but you should be able to just knock that out. Let me see if I can do that. Yeah, that sucker is going to be a pain in the ass to punch out too, just as a FYI. I'm just going to leave that in, but if you do choose to hammer that out, remember that this trigger return spring is under tension and will fly out at you if you do not put a slave pin in there to hold it, which I doubt you would do, because if you're replacing this, then, whoa, camera got shaky. If you're replacing this, you're going to be removing that spring anyhow to get the new trigger on there. At that point, all of this would come out, the trigger bar will come out, and sorry, camera's getting shaky, but and then you can go ahead and polish out your internals, and that would be the pretty much basic field strip and disassembly. If you wanted to change out your firing pin, which I highly recommend replacing this firing pin retaining pin with something from Cajun Gun Works or CZ Custom as well. Makes a very high quality firing pin retaining pin that can replace this, because this pin's very prone to breaking, and if you shoot as much as I do, that sucker's gonna break like it did on my SPO1, because it's got the same setup. But like I said, that's your basic disassembly, and not much to it. If you choose to pop out this pin, it's really not that hard to get this back on. One modification that you can choose to do is to replace this firing pin lifter with a spacer from CZ Custom, and what that does is you'll have to actually remove your firing pin block, just remove this setup altogether, but it's going to significantly help your trigger action here. I think I was gauging this at a 4.5 pound with a very long reset. Reset came all the way out, but if you replace this firing pin lifter and the firing pin block, your trigger reset is going to be super short and very tactile. It's awesome. I actually went ahead and did it just to see what would happen, and it was pretty sweet. I wish I could keep this gun and shoot it as that, but I'm actually going to be getting rid of it. But that's a great modification right there. Go to czcustom.com and get a firing pin spacer, I think it's called, and then or you can opt to get a pre-B sear, which is extended and actually comes out to the width of the cage and replaces this entire assembly itself. But highly recommended that you do that if you're able to, and if you're not using it for a competition where you're not allowed to remove any of the safeties. It's going to strongly make this trigger better. But that would be the only reason to remove this pin and rework the internals here, unless you put an adjustable sear from Cajun Gun Works on this piece. But that piece, you would have to retain your firing pin block lifter and work out some of the kinks on other ways as far as polishing goes to work on your reset. But that's it, guys. That's how you disassemble your CZ75B SA. Hope that helps.